Ignored and bullied by my friends for 6 months, I discovered their group chat named after me. "We all hate you," they yelled. After catching a video of them trying to pee on my car, I'm left wondering, how did my best friends turn into my worst nightmare? My title is somewhat simplified. However, I am going to inform you that this is a lengthy read as there is a significant amount of detail. For context, I am a senior in high school, and my friends have completely ignored and cut ties with me for the past 6 months or so. I do not really care about them specifically, as I only have about 2 months left with them until graduation, but I want to avoid making the same mistakes in the future. I have been genuinely good friends with these individuals for approximately 3 years. I invited a couple of them into the group and have taken a few of them on trips. However, I tend to avoid conflict or arguments by laughing them off, which may not be the best approach. To begin, around the end of last year, my friends and I had a small party or gathering. Toward the end, we went for a walk around the neighborhood. I was not in my right mind, if you understand what I mean, and neither were the others. One of these guys, who I had known my entire life and was practically my best friend, began talking about me and my family. He said some really troubling things and then called me a coward when I refused to fight him. I told him that I did not want to because he was my friend. He came and pushed me, I pushed him back, he punched me, and then I punched him back. I immediately called an Uber and left. A few weeks later, I unfortunately lost a game. I will not specify what because if these individuals see this, it will be quite clear that it is me, and had to face a punishment that the winners got to decide. They assigned me something that would reflect very poorly on me and could potentially jeopardize my future college acceptance. I declined and requested something easier, preferably one that would not affect me in the future. They told me to stop being a coward and to accept the punishment. They also decided that I would not be allowed to attend any hangouts or parties until I completed my punishment. I assumed they were joking. However, I was not invited anywhere for 3 months. If I reached out online, I was often left on read, ignored, or responded to with hostility, being told that I had to complete my impossible punishment. They would not even talk to me at school without bringing this up, and I began to realize that they would not communicate with me in person either. I felt genuinely upset about this, especially since while I have other friends, nobody really does anything outside of school. This group is all I have, so I felt somewhat trapped. At one point, I struggled to sleep because I was anxious about this situation, whether it would be resolved and, more importantly, being completely ignored by guys whom I had considered my best friends just a couple of months earlier. There were a few occasions when I discovered a gathering or party, asked to attend, and was told that I could not. Two of the girls in this group felt bad and tried to help me get invited, but these guys would not budge, even stating things like, "We assumed you wouldn't want him here." Eventually, I was invited to a party thrown by one of these girls, and afterward, things seemed to lighten up. I started getting invited to events, even if I often found out about plans by listening to these guys talk or by reaching out after the hangout had already started. However, at one of these parties, my friend opened his phone and I noticed a group chat notification with a group chat name that included my name. Everyone was part of it, the whole group, boys and girls. I felt pretty devastated. I did not let on that I was aware, but over the ensuing week, I realized that people were messaging in it. We had a previous group chat with the same people, but it had been inactive since I stopped getting invited to events. In the past couple of weeks since I noticed this, I picked up on some things. They all plan within this group chat, that is why I never hear about anything. More frustratingly, the background photo of this group chat is a picture of my face, taken at an awkward moment when I was caught blinking and turning my head. To put it simply, it is not flattering. Then, yesterday, we all gathered, and I saw that the picture was changed to one of me passed out on a couch. Returning to the story, things were as smooth as they could be until a couple of weeks ago. I went to the usual hangout spot, a good friend's house, who invited me over as he is part of this group and is probably the only one who has not treated me poorly, and we just messed around. Around midnight, we were all quite inebriated and sitting on the couch when one of these guys stood up in front of us and started yelling at me. The guy who punched me, whom I mentioned earlier, also joined in. He said things like, "Why do you hang out with us? We all hate you. Why do you keep returning when you just get bullied?" He then went on about how I had been excluded and so on, however, I do not recall the rest of it. He ended up slapping me and saying other hurtful things. I took an Uber home, noted down what I remembered from that night to ensure I would not forget, and went to bed, but not before messaging him to ask why he was being an antagonist to me that night. I wanted to give him a chance to apologize, but I woke up to a message saying, "I do not remember what happened, but what I said was the truth." This guy was my best friend for about 3 years. We got along well and had hardly ever had any issues before this. One of the other guys recorded the entire incident and shared it in the group chat they have. One of the girls responded with laughter, inquiring what I had done to provoke him, as if I had initiated the whole situation and it was a regular occurrence. I know this because the guy next to me was on his phone and I saw the group chat. Regarding what he said, I do not genuinely feel bullied by these guys. Sure, I have been left out before, but I mostly attend everything now even if I do not get involved in the planning. In person, we get along fine. It feels somewhat strange over the past few months, at least from my perspective, but I try to ignore it. There have been times when I show up and one of the girls will say something like, "Oh, my name's you came too," or "Oh, I did not know you were coming." We never argue or have any issues unless someone has had too much to drink. They always seem happy to see me when I arrive at places. At school, we acknowledge each other in the halls. I stopped sitting with them at lunch back in January. I returned to the same location a week later after being invited by the guy who resides there, a close friend of mine. They all appeared genuinely thrilled to see me, high-fiving me and asking how I was doing. Then they started consuming some drinks and the group split. Some went to grab food at a restaurant while a few stayed. I chose to stay. Apparently that was a poor decision. I was left with the guy who fought me but also one of the close friends I mentioned earlier. The guy who fought me began discussing me and my family, among other topics. He asked what was wrong with me. I remained silent, unwilling to provide him with the reaction I assumed he desired. He then practically begged me to fight him again so that I could reclaim his respect. I repeatedly declined as there were people on their phones and I suspected it would be filmed with no positive outcome for me. The guys who went to get food returned and we all went for a walk around the neighborhood. I lagged about 20 feet behind the group just to see if they would say anything. I assume they thought I would not remember because the two guys from before, the ones who claimed to hate me, began chatting about me. I do not think they realized I could hear them, but they would not stop. We were out there for a solid hour and I was the sole topic of their discussion. Granted, no one else spoke at all, it was just those two going back and forth. I felt terrible. I returned home shortly after and woke up to a video where one of them attempted to urinate on my car. They did not succeed. Now with the school year drawing to a close, my friendship with all of them is also coming to an end, so I decided to ask around about the group chat and determine what it was about. I inquired with a good friend of mine, someone I have known my whole life and who also has not been involved in any of this but has passively participated, about the group chat's purpose. I trust this individual, and he is one of the two people from this entire group whom I will keep in touch with after high school. He said he was unaware of the group chat and that it does not exist. Why would it? Because they would not do that to me and that I was overthinking. I asked another guy and he also claimed not to know about it, stating that it does not exist and that there was no reason for it to. Two other people said the same. I know these guys are all part of this. I just want to understand why I am not in it and what goes on within it. Furthermore, I really cannot stand these people. It all seems insincere, they appear two-faced. I do not really know why and I struggle to gather information. I cannot separate from the group because some of them genuinely like me and I get invited to a lot of activities. Yet at the same time, I seem to be disliked by some, and when I inquire about the reason, I receive no answer. I am seeking advice on how to endure this situation. I have not done anything to anyone in this group. I drive them around when they cannot drive, I talk to them at school, and I used to check in on them. Currently, I dislike this situation. It feels odd knowing they have a group chat that I am not part of, particularly with my name in the title. Do they feel remorse? They must be aware that I know about this by now. I feel as if these individuals do not take me seriously, and it makes me extremely resentful. I have about 2 months left with these people. It feels strange to be with individuals who engage in activities without me. I have to essentially pretend to be friends with these individuals and I can barely tolerate it. Nevertheless, outside of this group, virtually nothing happens. No one organizes anything. As a somewhat extroverted person, I need companionship. It is fine in person, as I have mentioned, but I just feel unusual. If I attempt to resolve things by individually asking how to rectify my apparent problems with the group or what I did to cause it, they simply shut down or respond with uncertainty about what the issue is, or they claim not to have noticed any problem. Since someone will inevitably advise me to stop associating with these people, I must say that I genuinely cannot. Some of my best friends are in this group, so I cannot leave. I have also invested 4 years into these individuals. Moreover, no one outside this group engages in activities, I would just be stuck at home. Recently, this has severely impacted my self-esteem. I am beginning to doubt myself, overanalyzing anything I do in a social setting to determine if I am being odd, worrying about my experience in college, if this situation will recur. I really need advice on how to survive the next few months. How do I interact positively with this group? How do I ignore their apparent issues with me? I never did anything to these guys, and when I ask what transpired, they brush it off as if they do not know either. I apologize for ranting. I just truly require assistance here. Thank you if you have read all of this. In summary, my friends have been treating me poorly for the past 5 months, and I am unsure how to proceed and reconcile with them. Story 2. My boyfriend claims he's happy to be with me, but why did he ignore me at the concert and break my heart over breakfast? After 2 hours of tears, his big revelation was, I guess the ball is in my court. Is he just with me to avoid being alone? A 27-year-old female met my partner, a 27-year-old male, through a dating application, and we are still in the early stages of our relationship. I discovered early on that he was a virgin and had never dated. To clarify, he is no longer a virgin since we began our relationship. I did not feel it necessary to make a significant issue out of it and emphasized the importance of open communication instead. He mentioned that opportunities for dating simply never arose for him. In hindsight, I realize I should have been more concerned. To clarify, I believe he is a nice person. However, I struggle with the feeling that his lack of experience is both a choice and an excuse. There is a difference between lacking options and choosing not to attempt something. I have clearly articulated my needs and expectations. I have openly communicated my desire for a physical connection, such as holding hands or a gentle touch on my waist, and have occasionally requested brief check-ins. While this is just one aspect of my needs, my primary love languages are touch and quality time. For instance, I verbally give cues like hold my hand, kiss me, or let's cuddle, and also employ both subtle and overt body language. I often bump into him in an effort to encourage him to hold my hand or put an arm around me, and I verbally ask him to do so. Unfortunately, 99% of the time, it falls flat and happens only when I directly prompt him. I feel like I am the one making it happen, even though he assures me that he wants the same things I desire. We recently took a trip for our first overnight concert, which should have been enjoyable. However, it seemed he could not appreciate the moment we were sharing. Even when challenges arose, I wondered why he could not simply be glad we were together. He was understandably frustrated because I was late getting to his place. While I also did not mean to oversleep my alarm by half an hour, I had just worked 4 consecutive overnight shifts of 10 hours each. He also failed to take the initiative to get gas, while waiting for me to drive 2 hours to reach him before adding an additional 2 hours to Pittsburgh. Then there were the storms. He became anxious and struggled to overcome his worries, rendering me unable to support him in any manner. He fixated on the weather and my tardiness, despite the fact that we arrived on time and had to wait several hours due to the rain postponing the concert. I thought for sure that once we arrived at the concert, it would be easier for him to enjoy the experience. I was mistaken. He largely ignored me throughout the show, engaging with a friend who happened to be present rather than talking to me. This friend even tried to include me in their conversation since he was not doing so. Keep in mind, I am quite outgoing and can maintain a conversation, but I did not attend this event to speak with his friend. We were standing on a sparsely populated lawn, and at one point I noticed that we were separated by 5 full strides I counted. This seemed to have no effect on him. I stood there for an entire hour without him once checking on me. I stood alone at the concert he wanted to attend, surviving on just 2 hours of sleep and having traveled for hours without food until I finally made a purchase at a poorly stocked hotel convenience store. I had already attempted to hold his hand and bump into him, even stating at one point while trying to stay awake that I needed to lean on him. He still appeared confused. After the concert, we went back to the hotel and lay in the same bed. He did not touch me, not once. There was no goodnight kiss, no cuddling, nothing. The next morning, I woke up to find him missing from the bed. I texted him, asking him to come back and cuddle with me. After waiting a few minutes without his return, I got up. To my dismay, he was busy eating a Pop-Tart. One thing I specifically requested from the trip was to have breakfast together, and I had reminded him of this while we were lying in bed the night before. At this point, I felt completely exhausted. Between this trip and our previous hangout, I was left feeling deprived of any affection from him. I spent 2 hours crying and sitting across from him, expressing how much I yearned for a sense of connection and just needed him to hold my hand or provide some small gestures of affection. For the entire 2 hours, he did not once reach out to touch my hand, hug me, hold me, or move closer. His underwhelming response was, I don't know, I have never experienced this before. The conversation shifted to him expressing the following realizations. 1. He has no expectations or desires. When I asked what he envisions couples doing at concerts, he replied, I don't know, they go to the concert and listen to music. No consideration of grabbing food beforehand, taking photos, or holding hands despite my inquiries about those activities. He simply stated he had never thought about it. 2. He mentioned, well, I see it as my time, I guess I don't think about you, noted. 3. He admitted that he restrains himself from pursuing the very things he claims to want because he never simply says yes. For example, he complains about lacking social activities or friends. Yet, when a coworker invites him to the gym, he fails to act, despite not knowing if he will enjoy it. 4. He dislikes change and consistently expressed uncertainty about his ability to adapt. behaving as though he has no control over his choices or actions. In summary, when I inquired whether he was willing to begin saying yes and start challenging himself to do the things he desires, which he has been complaining about and that I am eager to do with him, his closing statement was, "I guess the ball is in my court." Am I unreasonable for thinking that lack of experience is merely an excuse for not demonstrating basic human decency and a desire to connect with one's partner? Why is there no instinctive drive, especially considering he is 27 years old and has never pondered these matters? He asserts that he is very invested in me and is genuinely happy, yet I do not sense that he is content to be with me. It feels as though he is merely pleased to have someone beside him, checking off the box that signifies he is no longer alone, without caring about actively engaging in any activities beyond alleviating the notion of solitude. Am I wasting my time?